very last.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. And, you said in terms of when I get to the prepaid, mine is then not gonna be the correct numbers?
No, the September warrants, for some reason, when they were printed, the very last check, 71546 for Worldwide Express, the amount got dropped off the report.
Okay,
So we had
but
to,
so when I ask for it, for a motion about it, we're gonna be okay.
yes, yeah.
All right, and then are we streaming? Are we live and active now?
Getting there.
Okay,
Absolutely.
I shouldn't have called this order before doing it. Sorry. No, that's okay. I should have checked in to make sure we were even up. Okay. July minutes. Does anyone have any questions or anything? We need to change or add? Oh, loading slow today. If not, would someone like to make a motion to approve our July meeting minutes? So that's Heather. So Tanya, you have everybody's names, okay? And someone like to second that? Second. Carol, all in favor? Thank you. Next item, the approval of our expenditures, the July prepaid checks, 71354 to 71358, totaling $6,507.42. The August prepaid check, 71459 to 71461 and 71462, totaling $7,423.72. The August warrants check, 71360 to 71452. Totaling $177,462.81, and September warrants check 71463, 71546, totaling $138,993.41. And then the additional one of 71547 for total of $3,722.27. My packet just doesn't want to load. So if you need to see those, if you haven't seen them, and you don't have copies, you can look.
I was curious, just on the August, I'm sorry, the September warrant, what is Mango Languages?
It's a language learning database. It's an electronic resource where you can go and it's got about 42 languages that you can use to, it's like Babel, you've heard of Babel.
Yeah.
Including English.
Okay. Someone like to second that motion, Terry is approved. I'll second. Thank you. All in favor? That passes. Thank you. Approval of the financial reports, which includes the July and August prepaids and August and September warrant summary sheet, budget report, the income report, and there is nothing to report for gifts. I had a question about on the budget report, the professional services. That is $32,000. You see,
I do see that, and I had that same question this morning and I didn't have a chance to investigate.
Okay.
The chunk of it's in Visionware.
Oh, that's good. So it is.
Paid up front.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's a service contract for our checkout. Yeah. Computers, it's a computer software service contract or something. So it's one of those things like we like magazines and microphones, which get front loaded at the beginning of the year because they're year-long contracts.
Right, okay. Somehow I was not thinking those kinds of things were under professional services, but that's fine. That would make sense. So that is then it.
It's the same with comments better than yours.
It's, yeah, but I guess then my next question was, it looks like it's a substantial percentage of the budget. So but that's normal. It didn't change.
It is normal. I mean, in the other large expenses that will come out of that will be auditors, lawyers, but the auditor is usually the other substantial.
Okay. Carol, did you have, is that one of the things in your questions to me today? Because I can't pull, it's still not letting me pull up the packet online.
The only one other than that I had was the US Omni void.
Right, the voided, there was a funny voided check.
It was a loss in the mail, so we had to.
Okay.
Deduct it,
Okay. Great, thank you. Thank you.
which has happened in the last couple of years more often than we think.
Yeah. Okay, does anyone else have any questions or discussion for any of those financial reports? Okay, would someone like to make, here I am, make a motion and to approve them? Want to approve the financial reports, thanks, Heather. And someone second, thanks. Frank,
Yes.
all in favor?
I,
Opposed, thank you, that will happen. Hi, Sarah. Hello. We've talked a little bit. I'm Katie. Elliott.
Katie,
Nice to see you.
nice to
Welcome.
see everyone.
Yes, yes. You are on our agenda. I don't know where you are with your time as to whether you'd like to move up.
Well, where are you on your agenda?
We just went through our expenditures and our financial reports, so I'm about to begin mine, but I'm happy to have, if you have anything you want to say now, or you were gonna stay for a little while and you're happy to.
If you don't mind, and if it's the pleasure of the board, if I can talk now,
Sure.
then I can go home.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. So I'll let you even introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sarah Dallas. I'm the director, Ken Trevor. I'm the director of the Southern Adirondack Library System. We're your neighbors just around the corner on Whitney Place across from the Bachelor Mansion. I want to thank you all very, very, very much. I got elected to be a trustee at the Albany Public Library, and that's a public school district, public library as yours is, but we've got 7 branches. So I'm really, really envious that you got one. You have no idea. I don't know if everybody in the room knows about SALS and what we do. We're a cooperative library system, and we're so very fortunate to have a library of your caliber as part of our members. I look to your leadership when I need opinions, and Jen is generous, and Ike is generous, and Trevor is generous to share their opinions. So I think our services are better because you have such a strong staff. So thank you for that and what you do. We provide the delivery among the libraries. We help provide IT for you. We have 6 full-time IT people on staff that are pretty much on your beck and call. And we thank you for that. We help with continuing education, we help with annual reports, construction grants, and I guess we are the step between you and the New York State Education Department. And we are here, my staff is here to help you whenever we can. So thank you for that. I did bring the JA fees for next year. I know that you probably have seen it already. And now you get to see it again. And again, we thank you for being part of the JA. On your warrants, you'll see that you're paying money every month to SALS. Please understand that it comes physically into the SALS building, but it doesn't go into the SALS coffers. That money goes directly into the joint automation project, and that helps pay for the hardware, the software, the staff, and all other things that make you part of the big consortium. So thank you for that. I'm really thanking you a lot because we're so fortunate to have a library of this caliber within our system. Not every public library system is as fortunate. I'm sure Ike has told you about this, but I feel like I need to share it with you also, is that the New York State Education has changed it so that all public library trustees must do 2 continuing education hours a year. We're trying to make it as painless as possible. One of the things we have is we're going to be part of Niche Academy, and that will be an online course for you. We also try to sponsor webinars. The last one we did was somebody named Jamie LaRue, who talked about book bans and how to deal with book challenges. So let us know how we can help you with trustee training. It's not supposed to be onerous, it's supposed to be helpful. And you don't need to have a certificate or anything. I think you're all trustees and I trust you. I trust you, so just say what you saw, what you attended, how many hours, and the date. And I think that'll be enough to report on the end report.
Right, and I'm tracking that with everybody, so that I
Okay,
can
great.
hand it all to Jen.
All right.
And it's even on my list today, to talk about other things coming up for them.
Very cool. See, we're on the same page here. I'm going to talk a little bit about Unite Against Book Bans. I think you have to be living under a rock if you're not aware that there is some conversation going on in the United States and in Saratoga County and in New York about books and book challenges. I'd like to bring your attention to something called Unite Against Book Bans. That's a nonpartisan organization. It doesn't cost anything to join as an individual. And in fact, if the Saratoga Springs Public Library wanted to sign on as a partner, there is no fee for that either. And you'll get information about what's going on and it's a really good site. You can go onto the site without paying anything, but it'll give you some facts and figures regarding the book challenges. I know, knowing these 2 people pretty well, that you don't have any problem reviewing your policies. And what I really recommend for all libraries is to review your collection development policy. And in your collection development policy, if your reconsideration policy is part of it, I recommend going on and making it a separate policy. Separating the reconsideration from the collection development policy. The other thing is in your reconsideration for materials, programs, all different things, it calls for having a committee to review. And it would be helpful to have an outside person on this review committee. You're totally capable of doing it within house, but if you want somebody outside to look as well, I'll offer a sales consultant to be part of that committee if needed. Double, triple check your meeting room policy. And the other thing that I want to say is that I don't know about you, but I know about me, and if I'm challenged, even over a parking space, which I have parking permit, it's for parking spaces. If there are challenges and somebody approaches you, my adrenaline gets stupid and my brain shuts down and I want to flee, because that's how I deal with confrontation. Practice if somebody comes up to you in the supermarket or Putnam Market or Hamlet and Ghost, anywhere. Now you can see where I hang out. But having said that, practice, have some good talking points. Sal just came up with a list of talking points that can be used for staff as well. Have you seen it? We have some of these really cool talking points that we can share so that you just get something in your muscle memory and your brain to practice. So what I would recommend if somebody came up to me in Hannaford and Albany about something, I'd say, I hear you, I understand. This is how I suggest you go through. We have policies, you can read them on the website and contact our director. But just practice that so you're not stuck in an uncomfortable situation, because these are your friends and neighbors, and they may be going to the same place of worship. Your children might be playing with their children, so we're all in a community. And the last thing I want to say about all of this is that you must treat all requests the same, no matter how you lead. The problem is when your policies are not followed the same way for everyone, that's where you can be in legal trouble. I don't have to talk to you about the construction grant because Sal's board is reviewing them tomorrow. So you passed the deadline, you didn't see it anyway. So those are just some of my talking points. Do you have any questions for me?
Can we get a list of the Sal's, talking points around that you could pass to Ike or Janet?
And another thing is, if you go on to Unite Against Book Bans, they have a wonderful figure that 71% of people on both sides of the aisle, regardless of their political bent or where they are in the United States, they are opposed to book challenges and book banning.
Right.
So, and it is the First Amendment.
Yes, and I've been putting together with Ike, where our materials and where those policies are so that I can send something to the board so they just have it in an organized place. We're having a conversation tonight about the public comment part of our bylaws, which I had emailed you about. My other question, and then we'll see if other trustees have questions, is I was at that webinar that Jamie Rue did. That was the second webinar I attended with him. And I know he has a book that is coming out this month. And I would love to have a book group study kind of time with other trustees, if they're interested in Sal's, or just partly to get to know people a little bit in other libraries. We never know when things are gonna come up, and I haven't received it yet. I've pre-ordered it, but it doesn't look like it's gonna be something huge. And so that was a request I had, that I would love to have a book study time with people.
I love that idea.
Okay.
I love that idea.
I haven't even mentioned it to them. They don't have to come. So, and does anybody have any questions for Sarah? Yes,
Please, Alice. How are you?
I'm Sarah.
Hi, Sarah. I'm Carol. I was just wondering about when you previously mentioned the joint automation. How many libraries in the South system does that supply?
There are 34 member libraries in the Southern Adirondack Library System, and there are 14 member libraries in the Mohawk Valley. So your library catalog contains materials from Saratoga, Warren, Washington, and Hamilton counties, as well as Schenectady, Schoharie, Montgomery, and Bolton counties.
So the farthest south is Schenectady.
I would say Sharon Springs or Colasville. And then Waterford might be the lowest, not the lowest, but southern. And I'm not sure which is further, Inlet or Long Lake. But, you know, you go up the Northway, you get off, and you can either go right or left. And we have libraries on both sides of Blue Mountain Lake.
Okay, thank you. And then, I don't know if this relates, but can we get credit if we go on Friday?
Yes.
Friday to the employees.
Actually, not if they're not doing any, continuing education day, but I have a whole nice little list of you. If they had a speaker coming in to do something, but that's not what's happening on Friday for development day.
If you look at the guidelines, and please understand that this is from the state, I'm gonna throw the state on here. They have certain providers.
They use. Yes.
So if it's sanctioned by SALS or Mohawk Valley or NILA, or the American Library Association or Capital District Library Council, there are certain presenters that are part of that, that's recognized.
Yeah.
All right.
But I have lots of ideas over here, and you've already done some.
Thank you.
On the SAL's website, there's something called, she's gonna laugh at me because she says I don't say it right. It's New York Library Trustees Online, so Jen and I have a different accent, but anyway, if you take a look at that, you'll see that there are all kinds of things on there where you can go to something as quick as 15 minutes to longer, and on the SAL's website also, there's a listing of different seminars and webinars that are recognized. I was gonna say one more thing, and I have no idea what I was gonna say.
I have a question for you. I was wondering, you said Sal is about 34 libraries. Are you aware of like how many challenges, books are going on in the library system?
In the library system?
Have there been a lot or?
Yes. There is a library that's a little bit to the north of us, that unfortunately seems to make the paper all the time. There have been people challenging books, asking questions about books. And you've got a fabulous director here. And I think a lot of times when people are challenging, they want to be heard. They want to be able to say, I really don't like this book, and these are the reasons why. And you've got a director that would say, come on in, let's talk about it. Let's explain why it's on the shelf, why it's not on the shelf. So I know of 4 situations that the director spoke to the person. And there was an understanding at the end of that conversation. So I think you're such a good director who has those wonderful skills to be able to listen and to process and to have that necessary discussion.
Was that kind of informal then, or was that formal?
We, in the course of my time here, I think we've had one sort of semi-serious formal challenge. But we've had a number of situations where people have had objections to things. They should talk about why you have a choice and we want somebody else to have a choice that might be different from your choice.
Right.
So, and that's kind of, and when we explain what formal process, as they usually take.
I think people are nervous, they read things on social media, and I mean, bless them, they come in and they have that discussion, and that's wonderful, because that's what community is. And there is an understanding, and you do have a reconsideration policy to go through if indeed there are reasons to have something removed, and sometimes there are. There was a cookbook a number of years ago, and it was written by Adele Davis, and in it was a recipe that was dangerous. It was a dangerous recipe. It would not have, if somebody ate it, it would not have a good ending. However you want. So when it was brought out that this book was indeed dangerous, it was removed, and that's when it works. In your policy, and I apologize because I didn't look at it. Your reconsideration policy, you may want to limit it to people who live in your community, in your tax base. And because there are groups, I read something that 11 people started all of the book bans across the country.
That's amazing, isn't it?
And they have every right to do it in their community,
Right.
but they don't live here and they don't pay your taxes. And
Go ahead, Carol, you had another question.
Yes, I almost said amen on that. Oh, is there any way that the director can decide to not meet in person with people, but maybe over the phone or virtually? You know, when a person has an objection to a book, I mean, if you.
I think the operative thing is that meet, listen, have that connection, have that discussion, however you feel comfortable. That's the way to do it. It's not ignoring, it's listening and hearing and having that interchange. I also want to thank you also. Sal's got a very generous grant from Carrie Warner, our assembly person. And you're going to have an exhibit, I believe, on the Holocaust. And it is one of the most moving exhibits I have ever seen. So that's it, sure I can say enjoy, but I think you'll be very impressed with its quality and the stories it tells.
On the subject of bans, a lot of recently publicized challenges, including local school district have been in school libraries. And I'm just curious, is there conversation going on between public librarians and school librarians that is mutually reinforcing that can help the school librarians, for instance, in dealing with these challenges?
I do believe so. And it's strength in numbers. It's not really defending the library per se, but it's nice to have support because challenges can be traumatic. I tried to make light of it earlier, but it is traumatic being at the brunt of some of this. I've been in meetings that have been very comfortable. But yes, working together, communicating, and what we're talking about is democracy and the First Amendment. And that's where I think we bring everybody together.
I just want to quickly return to your comment, Carol, is that I don't think as a board, we have any expectation that Ike puts himself in any kind of situation with someone he would not feel safe or comfortable to have a conversation, and someone was being, which would fall under the parameters of conduct, expected conduct in the library. So, and I would imagine you realize that too. We're not,
Yes.
you know, that for sure it's always what just you feel comfortable with, and those policies exist for you to have the resources that you need.
I appreciate that, yeah. And usually what I would do, we had a recent situation with someone who had some concerns about, he said about the culture of the library, which was vague enough, I didn't know what it meant. So So we met, but I had Jen come in, he has my human shield.
Yeah, yeah, I need shields all the way around, we're all happy to step in.
So that there's more than, one person.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
And if you don't mind, I'll answer with trauma does happen. And your staff, your wonderful, wonderful staff are down on the floor facing people with all sorts of concerns or behaviors or. I mean, it's an eclectic community that uses your library. So I think it's great that you're gonna have a staff day and that you're gonna acknowledge that trauma does happen and sometimes not so pleasant things happen in a public library. And that as a board, please be supportive, and I know you are, of your phenomenal staff.
We try, we are very appreciative of all the things they do to support each other.
So thank you.
Thank you for coming. It's really lovely for you to take the time.
Oh, and our annual meeting is in May. I think it's the third Monday in May.
Okay.
Right. Jen used to work with me, so Jen used to. Jen would pass her notes and we worked together. Yeah, it's the third. It's gonna be at Fort William Henry. And the people behind the Holocaust exhibit will be speaking, and that counts for continuing education. Thank you so much for your time. It's been a
Thank
while. When I used to come downstairs.
Yeah, well, that's what we were a smaller board. The board itself has expanded and then keep us all safe from the germs of the world. We'll keep a little more space. Yeah.
Thank you again for
Thank
your
you.
time.
Okay. Alright, so I'm gonna. No, we can close it. No, I'm fine. I just. Okay, and they're welcome to come in. All right, so in my report, I did have a reminder about your continuing education, and there are a few things coming up that I didn't know if they would spark any interest for someone. Web Junction is doing one in October on revitalizing morale, cultivating a supportive library culture. November 28th, Living Our Values Out Loud, programs that walk the talk, connecting library programs that represent their library's values, which is representative of things in the strategic plan right now. The trustee handbook. Book Club is doing one on equity, diversity, inclusion, access, and justice in October. The NYLA conference, the New York Library Association conference, will be here in Saratoga in November. I think that Ike mentioned that in his report. So that's one of those ones, Carol, you could go to the keynote address, which is Thursday morning at 9:45. Breakfast, right? And I can't remember her name. I didn't write it down. And then, what is it?
Emily Drabinsky, the ALA investment.
Yes, and it looked good. Her talk was good. There's one on that Friday, the 3rd, for trustees. Fun trustee scenarios for legal compliance. They really need to do a little bit more for the trustees. We really don't get a whole lot of, but that's happening. And there's another equity, diversity, inclusion, individual responsibility for creating belonging connection. That is a webinar that's happening in November. So there's a bunch of things. If you haven't seen those come through your email and you want more information about any of them, let me know. And then always remember to just send me a little note, and I have a spreadsheet that I'm just keeping track, because our continuing education requirements run through the calendar year, not our fiscal year, because they are a part of the New York State reporting. So I'll get it all to Jen in December for her to include in the report for the year. Another reminder that the Friends are having their annual meeting on Tuesday, this coming Tuesday at 5:30 here at the library, and that the book festival in October now if you go onto the site, it's now showing actually all the events, the authors. So you can click on there, if there's things that you're interested in attending. And then the other couple of things I've been working on this past month will come up later in our agenda. Any questions for me before we move to Ike? All right. Director report.
I didn't know if you had any questions about my written report, but the first thing I wanted to say was to welcome Tanya as our new account clerk. She's furiously taking meeting minutes, and I don't know that she's ever done that before. So, she's had a very busy couple of weeks working closely with Denise, who is on vacation now, and she'll be back for one day, maybe a couple of days. There'll be a couple of days of crossover in case Tanya has questions from the time that she's working on her own that they can go. So, well, Tanya, we are very, very happy to have you here. And in addition to Tanya, to see later on in the new business, there's a whole slew of other new people from mostly replacing a bunch of part-time departures. We had a number of people who were in part-time positions a couple go on to their dream jobs. Recent college graduates who went on to really terrific things. And then people who were working with us part-time, who got full-time jobs in places that they had real training for. So rather than clerical or shelters, they've gone on to bigger and better things. And then a couple of retirements. So and very Kelly has been very vigorous. But it is true, I think it is true that we are
First time member.
fully staffed.
That's not Jason.
You saw the book festival, and if you look at the program for the book festival, and each year, each of the 3 years got bigger and bigger and bigger, and now it's gone from the weekend to it starting midweek, and it was gone from one headline event to, it was going to be 4 headline events for one person. Tracy Kinder had to pull out to injure himself, and so he's not going to be part of the program here, but there really is something for everybody. We're hosting 8 of the events here at the library, and they'll be everywhere else throughout town. Next door Cafe Lena, at Saratoga Arts, and at UPH. The city center is going to kind of be the nexus of things. The literary marketplace, they sold out of foods for local authors. The library van will be parked over there in the kids zone. The Kid Note event, which was here last year, and filled up this room, will be over there this year because they've had the space and it should be a great kind of closing out the festival event again. So there's a lot going on. And you saw that we do now have a LOX box, which is an opioid rescue, overdose rescue kit. So it's upstairs by the single use bathrooms, which is where we would think if there was going to be an event here in the library that required its use, that's probably where it would happen, since it's like the most private place in the library. And what it is simply it's a box with 3 doses of Narcan and instructions on how to use them. The supplies come from the county health department if we need to replenish them. Thankfully, it's been up there for a few weeks. We haven't had the need to use any of them. We have had doses of Narcan in the building for a while now, but not so publicly visible.
And is the expectation that you also then call 911 if you've had to give someone a dose of
That's-
Narcan?
The very first thing that
Okay,
say we're having an event, and then stay on the line with them while the dose is. And it's a nasal spray, so it's not an injection or anything.
I just know my brother, one of my brothers was in EMT. He said lots of people are then very angry often after they've been given Narcan because it is an abrupt. So, you know, the preparedness around someone coming back to would likely require some extra assistance.
Right, and we are on Friday having folks from the county health department come and train everybody on these various issues, like what to do to get that mentioned.
And I just want to add, we're also going to have, the county health is going to come on October 17th, for public training as well. So we'll have a program and people can drop in, it's like 10-minute trainings.
That's
So that'll
great.
be optional.
Yeah,
And our expectation is that not only will we have them available here, in case there's an event here, but that somebody might take one to take with them.
Yeah.
We're okay with that. Interestingly, you know, in our last meeting, we talked about the fentanyl test strip
yeah,
that we had started distributing. We've left them in the Henry Street foyer, and we have had to replenish. So people are taking, so hopefully that does the harm reduction. And so we've got something in place for either end. That's
sad things for us to talk about, right?
and the Friends Awards, you see the Marie Mad Volunteer Award is Mark Engel, who's been volunteering since 2017 with our English language learning program. And it's practically a full-time job for him now. He's kind of under the direction of Mary Ann Rockwell. So he not only does one-on-one English language learning tutoring, he's helped her develop citizenship preparation classes, and it's like multiple hours he does that. And then the H. Dunham Hunt Award, which is sort of the highest award for library service. This is the second time it's been given as a memorial award. At this time to Eric Hallberg, who some of you might know or remember from around the town. In his orange LLB vest walking around town. He spent hours, he was in the library every single day keeping our library staff on their toes with very eclectic and entertained with his very eclectic case of questions. And it was a surprise to us when he left us upon his death, the largest gift this institution has ever.
Okay. Great. Any questions for Ike?
And you'll notice in the book festival stuff, at least two of the panels are moderated by our very own Mr. Oakley.
Yes, I did notice that. All right, if not, thanks, Ike. Jen, I think you are next.
In addition to my report, I forgot to include, and I was just about, that I forgot to write down where it actually came from. With the Friends of the Library, we wrote an impact sector grant from the Saratoga.
Somebody.
It was like community grant foundation. Something like that. They have a committee. Yeah, Capital Region Community Foundation is a Saratoga County. They're giving out $5,000 to nonprofit organizations. So we applied, the Friends did it on our behalf because of the 501c3 to see if we could get some money towards the book drop for the end of the ramp, and then we'll. So it would just be to assist us in securing some money for that project.
Great. Have we heard an update about the bench?
We have gotten some questions. I know that the committee has met and I guess they're in the course of their deliberations. We haven't heard yet whether we're gonna be one of them.
Okay, nice.
We actually have a public vote on that, and I think it's probably gonna be the first week of December.
Oh, all right, so it's a
Announce
little.
the ballot.
Okay.
Probably next month, we had a few loose ends with some of the projects that we needed to tie up before we can make our final selection.
Great. Hmm.
Hey, can I just go back?
Yeah.
I realize I had a question like about the knowledge box. The FAQ sheet
Yes,
is in someone's voice. Is that you? It says.
that's me, yes,
Please
that,
let me
that-
know.
yeah, that was an email to staff.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Oh, and I also want to say in the nature of, this is a project that, one of Jamie's, employees, Katie, Reno, and I have been working on with Cafe Nina, so Sarah like touched on everything. I had notes on a meeting room, consideration policy, and we're having a big event, Thursday evening, October 5th, from 6:30 to something like that here at the library, so.
That's what is
Terry
the,
participated in it last year, so we're moving it from Cafe Lena to the library. October 5th.
and what is the event?
It is called calling it 60 years of banned books, because Cafe Lena is celebrating their 60th
Oh, yeah.
anniversary. And it's gonna be original music by Dan Bergren and Reese Fulmer. And they have 6 readings from local authors doing, they all chose a book that was banned in the decade between 1960s and the current.
Oh, great. Any questions for Jen? All right. Then I think it's you, for our IT update.
Yes. Let's touch on the Wi-Fi. Aside from my little paragraph up there, the Wi-Fi rollout is almost finished. Just today, as I was prepping for the meeting, I had to replace one of the access points. But because the system is so modular, I got that done and continued my setup for this. And, oh, the remote printing, let's mention that too. We're testing, we're evaluating one of the 3 options for remote printing to replace the system that we had that no longer works. And that demo is probably up in another 2-3 weeks, so we'll be deciding whether we like that one or we want to maybe go with something else, but it's been working fairly well. There's a learning curve, which the librarians and the staff are picking up with ease. And it's a little bit of a clunky setup because of where we have it as a demo unit, but once we decide on it, if we do, we'll have a dedicated printer and a dedicated unit to serve the public for that walk-in quick print.
Great.
And can you vouch that you're here in person and not a holder?
You're gonna give Trevor horror ideas.
Any questions? Right in this report, the website,
Yeah.
the updated website, different metrics there.
Yes, thank you. Okay, any questions for Don? Anybody? Right. Trevor, you're up next.
Well, I just want to say, Sarah Gervin and I, we had a fun summer doing a pilot project, doing the van route on our 2 locations, the Four Corners Fire Department, and on the other side of town, Gavin Park we built in. And that was great. I think it was also awesome, and thank you, Jamie Chabot got to come with one time, Catherine, who came along, Jen, did you get out?
I
I didn't think so. I think you deferred to these two.
Once.
Well, that's right. I stopped down once, so that was really cool that they got to come and just kind of see what was going on. And unfortunately, what they saw was going on wasn't the kind of, like, yeah, summer party that we had in our head. It was pretty low key. And so, I mean, it could be due to a number of different things, being location, time of day, days of the week, whatever, but just getting out and doing this scene and trying to collect as much, information from the people that eventually did find us as possible. And so two things came out of this. I mean, so I'm thinking big and then thinking now, or thinking realistically in your future. I mean, my thinking big thing was, I would love to have 1 or 2 dedicated staff, kind of like a buddy comedy film that are in that van, and the van is the office, and they are finding the events and they're going to the events and they are representing. And it's this constant thing where the schedule kind of changes every couple of weeks. We go through and they take pictures and, it's just briefly that they don't care if they're, out on a Saturday night at a football game or a Sunday afternoon at a bake sale. They're just this kind of like, hey, whatever, cool, we're in the van. So that's.
I just pictured Cheech and Chong.
So that's it, I'm thinking, but I'm thinking, okay, there's kernels of reality in there somewhere. So then going back down to reality, thinking now, the biggest piece that we got from people, nearly everyone that found us said, oh, can I drop my stuff off to you here too? Can I go home and get stuff and just bring it here? That was universal. People were more interested in offloading than taking the stuff that we had. And so then that got the wheels started. And so we're thinking about, all right, drop off location, well, there's a pickup thing. So one idea that came out of it was, well, thinking about school breaks, maybe Middleborough Fire Department, or I'm sorry, fire district, the district offices, they have a meeting room, some kind of thing where before school breaks, you could go out there like a Thursday afternoon or Friday afternoon. You've got the pickup location, and then say the Sunday or Monday, whatever, after the school break, you go out there and it's the drop off location. So all the stuff that you had on break, just come drop it off, to us in the van. We're trying to think of how we can take that and kind of say, all right, what are the things that people want to drop off? All right, we can do pick up and then drop off, so we can still have both ends of that service spectrum. So so it's just really gotten the wheels turning, and it was a fun experience. So
What about like a dedicated drop off? Like with Gavin Park or something.
That would be
Take
still-
those a little space and a little, you would have to pay for the box wherever it was, but.
are you talking about like having the van out, just taking things like, hey, we'll be here, hanging out?
Yeah, the van would obviously clear out the whatever it was, box or small, whatever, but in other words, people wouldn't have to just wait for the van to swing by and drop something off.
Yeah. Yeah.
Number car and bring it
Yeah. The offsite book returns is cool. We also had, visions of, the turkey and the straw playing as we were playing around, just tooling around neighborhoods, like Mr. Dingling, Monty Python, bring out your dad. So that was, it
I'm
was,
so glad you got out and about.
yeah, we are so.
It's so exciting to just get to even now reflect on what happened.
Yeah, so.
It was like a well-oiled machine. When I went, it was like, pull all this out, set all this up. It was up in like 5 minutes, and it was really cool to see.
Nice, that's really great.
After hearing Sarah Dallas, it occurs to me that what you're doing is book banning instead of book banning.
Can I simply guess that everyone's gonna just agree?
Gotta give him like some Saturday.
I'm cutting you in on this deal.
Hashtag van life. See the vans out this summer? It's amazing what's happening.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's just scary. Okay, thanks, Trevor. Let's see, I'm not looking to see who, Jamie, or looks like Catherine, you're up next. Oh, wait, Nancy had a question?
I saw at the end of your report about the Spanish speaking, is Trevor the one that?
Yeah, so that's different from the Spanish language learning
Right,
classes.
right.
But yeah, so Miriam reports to Trevor.
I just wondered where that was, the situation that with pulling the program.
At the moment, we don't have the funds to continue the program, so I don't know if Miriam's had a chance to reach out to the partner organizations where they do charge for those kinds of services, because that would seem like a more logical. Because the classes we were paying for the classes, they were being taught at the senior center. So it seems like maybe the senior center might want to adopt those classes.
We had been hoping that as part of the outreach efforts that we could also maybe from the student body at the senior center. Get some folks interested in also becoming
Yeah.
language tutors. That was also, and it didn't, a couple people said, oh, that sounds like, that sounds great, and then there just wasn't a follow up after that.
Okay, Catherine, we can imagine you have a very busy.
Pictures, it was we had super a lot of fun. I would say that summer reading was a huge success. We had a ton of people here. I don't love to be all about the numbers, but the number that I was most impressed with, I put in my report, 88% of prizes earned were picked up. And it doesn't always sound like it's he's impressed because he knows.
Yes.
That people, they go online because they get the app on their phone, they log things, but they never come get their prize. So we ordered the custom t-shirts that Gina designed. So every t-shirt we gave out this year said Saratoga Springs Library on it. And we'll have a similar version next year, but it'll be different so they can earn it again. So I'm really happy with the way summer went. We made a lot of changes compared to last year, not just the software. They also earned all of their collective incentives. So
Which was to feed back into the programs, and so did they like that? Did that end up
I
being-
really think some of the older kids in particular really got into it. Like, there's something about like an 8 or 9 year old that just really gets it. A 5-year-old doesn't get it. They just, but the Switch is downstairs. We haven't circulated it yet, but it's ready to go. The Ozobots have already been going out. The TV for this team room is on order, so we're, like they earn these things and now they get to enjoy them. And I think
Yeah,
it's
that's
really
nice.
exciting. Very happy. Yeah. So I would say we had a super successful summer. The other thing, I kind of wrote about it in my report, but I kind of wanted to say it out loud. We hired Anna Rains, our team librarian, about 6 months ago, so she's had 6 months, and she is doing amazing things with our teams. The team volunteer program, when I say, 27 volunteers, but they did over 300 hours, and almost all of those hours are with her, right? So it's not just them working, it's her putting together projects and training. So when I say that these things it's a huge impact. If you look at the team room attendance, it's always low in the summer because they have a million other places they could be. But a lot of the teams that were here was because it was the service projects. And then September rolled around and school started and we immediately had them back in the team room. So I'm so happy that she's with us. I'm so happy that she has really invested in our teams. The team room looks so different. All of her live guides look so different. So if you happen to be here, you should poke your head in the team room and say hi.
Great.
I think there's what did she say? 18 people in there the other day and they were making their own boba on the Charlie cart. So we're very busy. We're having a great time. Fall story time starting today. So my staff work really hard, but they do great. That's what I got.
Great. Good. Anybody have any questions or anything? Catherine? Hey, love hearing about all of those things. Okay, Jamie, is there anything in here you would like to highlight for us?
I mean, we had a good summer reading as well, not anywhere near the numbers that happened. But we had about 50, a little over 50 participants. Our person who won our big prize, which was, we have a sustainability theme. And so everybody who took a reading card got a package of wildflower seeds. And then our ultimate big prize was a gift card to Saratoga Tea and Honey. And so our person who won did pick up their prize. We have 100%. Pick up rate. We had a really great program. It was small and kind of simple, but one of my librarians, Kate, and she worked with Catherine on this, and they had patrons do a scavenger hunt throughout the library. And so they had to go around and find different words, and they're creating a quote. And I just loved it because I feel like it really got people out of their library comfort zones. If they never went upstairs, they were going upstairs, they were going all over the library. So that was really creative and fun. And we've got some awesome stuff coming up in October. So I want to wait and talk about that. But one of the things is the Fear the Library campaign. And so lots of really fun, spooky stuff coming up for fall. And one other thing, Sarah Dallas had mentioned the Holocaust program that will be in March. So more info on that.
Okay.
David, I have a question about the pie chart. So, the question should put out the volunteers.
Yes.
I didn't know what that represented. Is that staff working with volunteers or volunteers working with patrons?
So that's our volunteers who are under our librarian Katie. They are like seniors who give their time to us. And so they're usually, they are right at the front door as people are coming in at the Putnam Street side. So they're at a little podium and they're answering questions about like, where's this program happening? Where's the bathroom? Or there's a duck in the parking lot, what can I do? So just whatever, lots of different questions. So yeah, so there, and we actually, I'm so glad you asked about that because we had looked into, possibly getting rid of the volunteer program. And so we had asked them like what they thought, how they felt about working here, their hours, and I think they're the most dedicated library employees who are not employees because they absolutely love being here. They were so passionate about volunteering and they, I heard like, my parents volunteered here and that's why I wanted to do this. And so it was really humbling and wonderful to hear how much they love being in the library and just helping out. So that was really cool.
Great.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Jamie? Okay. Kelly, lots going on here. And if you, and if you want us to do these requests to appoint now during.
Yeah, I don't have anything else to add.
Okay. So I would like to make a motion to appoint Robert Peck as a building maintenance worker, Jody Stevens as a library shelver, Alexandra Sturp, maybe, librarian 1, Tanya Viola as our senior account clerk, Christine Schultz, librarian 1, and Abigail Suen, library computer clerk. Someone like to second that motion?
Second.
You're tied. You can go, Frank was a second ahead of Carol. All in favor? Thank you, that is unanimous. And thank you, Kelly, for a lot going on, and I'm sure your brain was spinning around, who did I say what to, and
Good filing system.
Good. And I also was really pleased to see that you're full with staff right now, and I hope you get to take a breath. Because
I can't believe it. I was making my report. I was like,
There's
nobody else, right? I almost asked like, there's nothing else we need, right?
Yeah, so good. And I see Rick's report. I didn't have any particular questions for him. Does anyone else have anything that they want to ask Mike about on Rick's report?
You
Okay,
should expect to see some I don't know, savings with rate changes, we should definitely expect to see some renewed energy use. So,
Great,
like,
great. Okay, and then we have, I skipped ahead, sorry, we have a thank you card that I'll continue to pass around for the rest of the board. Did you see this one? We can go that way then, from Mary White. We have no special or committee reports. We had Sarah's presentation. All right, so the next thing on our agenda is what I sent out to you around public comment. So just to give you a little bit of a picture, so this is not a policy, this is not even a draft of a policy. This is a compilation of research that I have done. And based somewhat on that webinar that I attended with Jamie LaRue, who said, really make sure you have a policy around public comment to potentially handle having used the experience of having no one or one. When we had two a couple months ago, that was like amazing to have two people here for public comment, that we could potentially have 10, 20 or more who would show up potentially around in this framework, something to challenge something in the collection. As I said earlier, I have for you, when we also organize this piece, something I'll send to all of you, so you can pull up exactly what exists for our policy on the website and what that form looks like, but which we've talked about, but then you'll all have it in one place as well as trustees. All it says currently in our bylaws is that under public comment, each speaker shall be limited to 2 minutes. The president may, in his or her discretion, extend or further limit this time allotment. So what I included is highlighted items, these bulleted items, and then below were some other ones that I was seeing. I think I looked at least 10, maybe even 15 current policies around the state of libraries, if they had a current policy around public comment. I also looked at what the ALA was suggesting and things that came up in Jamie LaRue's, and I had contacted Sarah Dallas as well to get some input. So if you had a chance to look at these, what will happen is we will decide together whether we agree to make a change in our bylaws to add more around public comment. We would then have to have it on our agenda again next month. Any change to the bylaws requires us to have it on our agenda over the course of 2 months. And then we could make that change. So I guess my first question to you is, do you agree with me that we need a more robust policy around public comment?
Yes.
Okay.
yes.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so when you look at that list, and feel free, all of you who are here as well, since it's, you know, everyone, if they come in for public comment, we're all in the midst of navigating that. So, is there anything there that you think doesn't make sense and that we should take off? I know when I said like people who wish to speak need to sign in, obviously if it's one person, we don't need them to sign in. That was just a way to organize if there's multiple speakers, that we're not kind of trying to keep track of who came in when, and then them getting into an argument of, but I was here ahead of you. And so that was why that was there. That we're indicating that it's limited to the portion of the meeting designated, so people can't just make remarks through our meeting, which has happened in the past, not around that particular issue, but we have had someone who just likes to comment. So it just gives me a place, if I'm running the meeting or whoever is running the meeting, to indicate that we only have public comment during that time. The time limit, different places have different time limits. The public comment period limited to 15 minutes. Different libraries have, some do it with a period at the beginning and a period again at the end. I was just working on what I thought seemed kind of reasonable right now. That public input is limited to comments on matters involving library business or operations. We don't need to be a sounding board for anything's. Personal complaints against library staff or board members shall not be received in an open meeting. Any such complaint shall be presented to the library director in writing for appropriate action. I figured that's similar, right, that we would have indicated that anyway. The board shall not engage in dialogue and is not obligated to respond. We can respond to or ask a clarifying question. Additional agenda items will not be added after public comment, and that piece about anything that they suggest. I guess the point is that we are not indicating that someone makes a public comment doesn't mean we're gonna make a decision based on that public comment, or that we're adding it right then to our agenda. When the board conducts a special board meeting, there'll be no public comment period. We have very few special board meetings. I think we have one when we, in the spring, when we work on the budget. So that doesn't happen that often. And then a summary of the public comments will be included. I also indicate what Sarah was saying before about, someone giving their address. When they sign in, or that they're making public comment, that they are within our library system. So that I put in this little statement at the top, which also indicated that people are welcome to attend. We actually don't have anything indicating that in our bylaws. It says it on the website about the meeting, when our meetings happen. So I didn't know if we want something in there indicating that people are welcome to attend, that we expect them to conduct themselves with respect and civility. Some people put those things in paragraphs, some put them onto the list. And that also if they leave a voicemail or send an email, that's what those little spaces are for. And that those things would be read. There's been a couple legal things around the country where people have submitted public comment and then their addresses and things were published in the newspaper or something, and they were upset about that. So far, the ruling on at least one of those cases was that given that they stood in front of a public comment and gave that information, it did not need to be something that we removed. Or we could just skip a name or whatever, but that could come up in the future. So what do you think?
Should you put something in there to make it clear that if you do this, or you have to sign your contact information, that could go somewhere else?
They're part of the official record. Well, what I indicated down below was just a brief summary of the public comments will be included in the minutes. Because we would not want to get into, just like everything we say is not included in the minutes. I don't know that there would be a reason that we would include the person. I don't.
If somebody's writing down their name, I mean, that's information that's some public, if somebody wants to get it.
Right.
So.
And if they say that filing could be in the recording.
Yes, and exactly. It is public because it's also being recorded.
We actually just kind of worked through this for city council meetings, because we used to require full address, and now we ask people to give their town. So they don't have to give, because. So now they just say, there's the front run in Saratoga Springs. And that's enough to satisfy the giving your address.
So I wonder if, I'm open to that. I don't know if then,
We're a school district library, right? Are there's the school, does the school district encompass, there are some towns that aren't in the school district, but are only partially in the school district?
right,
Yeah, so the only place that's entirely within the school district is the city. And then it's parts of Milton, Greenville, Saratoga.
and Boston Spa. I have a friend who's in the district, but their mailing address is Boston Spa. In the town, right,
So simply
Not-
identify.
not-
Exactly.
This doesn't identify you as persons in the school district, simply identifying your town.
Correct, so you can say, I'm from Greenfield and be in the current school district.
right. So we kind of need that address. we kind of need that address to know that they're actually in our district.
Well, you want a representation that they're from the district.
Right.
I mean, with the address, it's easy enough to verify that they're in the school district. I mean, it's not easily to do it instantaneously, but you can, like,
Right, right.
We were thinking like a super controversial thing where this is like a full house and maybe people waiting outside for the, you know, like I'm meeting city council.
Yeah.
Perhaps, like, I mean, that's what you're planning for, right? It's not the one.
Well, right, or, you know, or even just, even small groups, but potentially antagonistic and not respectful,
Right.
or not following procedure, or, and that we're constantly being interrupted.
Right.
That it was more to just say, it isn't that we, would go through the list, I think, of saying, I mean, I don't know, a big group came and they were being rowdy, we may have to say, just so you're all aware, we do have a policy on public comment, and, but it is more for us to fall back on. Right.
What if they wrote down, or if they wanted to speak, had to sign in and include the address on a written document, but it's not said verbally, it doesn't appear in the minutes or anything like that, so that we can track them down and we know where they're from, but nobody else needs to.
Yeah, and they haven't said it out loud on over
But it's
Zoom,
not said out loud.
right, that's fine.
and it does make a difference, because, you know, what matters to us is the voices of the people that we serve.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And if they like are on one of those borders and they didn't like the answer in Corinth, so now they're in Saratoga, but it doesn't impact, we can't make a decision for them for a different library. Is there anything that you don't think is relevant that's on the bulleted list, or anything that's on the list below that should be moved up or taken out?
Well, I had a question about, like, the first part of that is kind of just open meetings, though, so it's open meetings.
Yeah,
But so then you, the members of the public shall submit public comment in person or via email or via voicemail by the day of the meeting.
and that was a time. So that was via email too, and we needed a particular email to give them, or voicemail at, and we need a phone number to give them. Or by, because there was a piece of, we don't need that they can make, that no one can say that they, well, I did all that and it was at 4:55 PM, and it cannot be our responsibility to check email or voice.
I don't think.
I mean,
we
if
should
somebody-
accept public
If
comment.
somebody did that, what, somebody sent you an email, I mean, is somebody gonna read it out loud? Is that-
Yes,
that-
then that's usually the way that would work, is that it would be read out loud.
I think that would be very hard to manage.
Okay. I think, so my understanding is that,
We did, I'm sorry, we did do that when we were shut down for.
right, because there was no opportunity. We are not required, it's an interesting thing with open meeting law, we are not required to have public comment. It is an act of being open and wanting to receive input from our community. But there isn't rules, and a lot of the libraries say that. We are not required, we are doing this out of our goodwill or whatever to give you a space and time, and we're interested in your opinion. But I am. Do you want me to just take that whole section out? Public comment, so they only really can do it in person,
I don't think it's necessary because, you know, people can send us anything at any time, so.
right? Okay,
I was gonna say, on our agenda, we have a slot for correspondence.
we do. Okay, so then we can just, that's true, they could just, it would be included in correspondence. But so then I indicate there, anyone submitting public comment must provide their name and address. So if they're not submitting it there, we need to indicate when they sign in, people who wish to speak need to sign in and provide their address, name and address. Okay.
I would also recommend, with regard to the time limits, both the 2-minute limit and the 15-minute limit total. And I'm not sure it should be written into policy, but I think it might be important to recognize as a practice that the chair can have discretion in extending time, or in fact, as is often done in parliamentary procedure in general, when there are time limits set, the body has the right to extend, to vote to extend the time.
Okay,
So I guess what I'm thinking of is that, especially in the situation that Jen was referring to, where there's a really big showing, that you might need a kind of, pressure release
okay.
mechanism, by
So we
at
could
least,
say
at
the
least
public,
extending the time period.
so the public comment period is limited to 15 minutes unless,
Unless the board votes to extend.
Or the
Again,
board-
I have a question about whether it's even wise to put that in the policy.
I didn't know. I also knew though that there is no way we want to sit through an hour and a half or
No,
something
right,
at public comment.
Could you,
It could be our board practice, but if you put it in writing, it's sort of like waving a red flag and saying, hey, ask for more time, you know.
Right, I know. So what were you about to say?
could you be more generic about it and say the public comment period may be closed at the discretion of the chair of the meeting?
Well, I was just thinking more what Terry said, are your bylaws, are they Robert's rules, like? Cause I'm thinking like, what if the chair of the future is not
I know,
serving in the best interest of the library? You would want a consensus from the rest of the board.
right. That's the other reason I was doing all of these things is potentially in a scenario exactly like that.
Right.
Yeah.
So, so consent, so should we have it limited to the 15 minutes unless,
Plus the board votes to extend.
Special circumstances.
okay, votes to extend the time period.
Robert's rules, I don't know all of them, but I've been in a parliamentary situation where the chair, whoever's running the meeting would say, geez, I'm looking at the time, like, hey, did the board approve extending public comment for 5 minutes
Right,
by consent? And they can say yes or no. Like if someone dissents, then, you have to call a vote and then
yeah,
it's done. So
yeah, that's fine.
you do limit it.
Actually, the thing with the university council is some people, if they don't make it within the time period. We do the second one because we can get an hour and a half
Right,
yeah.
sometimes of public comment, like, don't push that on this board. But we tell people very clearly, like, if you were not able to be heard, you may email and we'll receive a copy of your comments.
Yeah,
So if you ever had a packed house and
yeah,
Cut it
that
to
we
30
have
minutes,
that,
let's
we
say.
yeah, we can have that correspondence indicate that they can, yeah, okay. What other ones in there that you think need to go, or, yeah,
Katie, I don't know if you would want to have a statement about behaviors that would not be acceptable.
right, so I indicated in that top paragraph, all individuals attending board meetings must conduct themselves with respect and civility in compliance with the patron behavior code of conduct. There are some people who get very explicit about all kinds of things, and I did include down at the bottom that one about what no signs or sticks, shall be allowed in meeting. I didn't know if we want to include something like that, which is just with the indication of public safety. Which makes sense, and that people can't then see, and who's gonna get whacked with what, with a group of people who got things. But I didn't put it up in the ones that I thought were the most important, because I know we don't have, our bylaws are very short, and then you're gonna get to this
Right.
and have this whole.
So maybe it should live, I'm just thinking maybe it should live in 2 places, and so have something in the bylaws about public comment shall follow the public comment policy.
I asked Frank about that. I did call and ask Frank about that, and he said we could easily do that. His point with me, which was also really good, is the bylaws are such a straightforward, easy place to find information. And sometimes going through that whole list of policies is another, but that is a strategy.
Although I hadn't considered how lengthy. If it was, I was envisioning something a little bit short.
And some people do it as just a paragraph. They don't even bullet out, so they just kind of list them. I'm not wanting it to be restrictive. Obviously, we want public comment. I just don't want a free-for-all of chaos and that we don't have anything that we get to stand on to say, this is our approach.
I mean, I think, you know, some of the stuff here may be good, but maybe not completely necessary, you know, we could trim it out and,
So can you give me examples of which ones?
well, I mean, some of the stuff below the bullet points.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, so some of this stuff I can see that, I think rehashing the comments, I don't think is it necessary unless something shows up under unfinished business, right?
right,
Or
yeah, and
makes it-
that wasn't, it seemed like some people do that, but yeah, I agree that we didn't need to do it. The cutting short any comments that are repetitive or, you know, what makes me nervous about putting something like that in there is we're cutting people off and we're assuming what they're gonna say.
Right.
And so I don't necessarily want to be in that thought police
Well,
place.
And you may have a million people come to say, I support everything you're doing, and you want to hear that a million times.
Yeah, all right, so let's take that one out.
I would take out the placards thing.
You don't care about that?
Well, I just think that, you know, it's not something that we realistically have had to deal with. I mean, it became an issue, like. But it sounds like we're expecting you know, a mob or something.
Yeah. The statement indicating that no items or services will be removed while reviewed. Does that exist already in the policy?
It does.
Then we don't
so,
need to have that.
so It belongs in the reconsideration.
Okay, perfect. Then we don't have to have that because it isn't really public comment. That means that if we needed to clarify, we could clarify that nothing is removed while under.
And so I guess this assumes that the public comments are going to be about challenges rather than.
And I didn't want to totally indicate that it's gonna be about challenges. Because lots of other things could happen. I suppose we could be deciding we wanted to, I don't know, open as 4 more locations. And lots of people could have comments about that. But right now, this is the most popular issue that people are making public comments about.
But yes, this is included in our.
Okay, okay. So if you could now just take some time after our conversation about it and send any notes. Like I said, this is not the policy. This isn't even the draft of the policy. We would then bring it up again at our next meeting and approve it then. So if you could just do that, maybe over the next week or two, that would be helpful. And maybe you and I could then work on that a little bit together after or something.
Yeah, I mean, I think you just, you know, boils down a little, take into account the comments and then.
Okay.
There, you know, people may.
Do you like having some kind of a summary at the beginning? Like that in accordance with public is welcome to attend? You can think about it too. You don't have to give me an answer right now.
It's certainly, you know, anodyne. I don't, you know, I mean,
Okay.
I don't know how to think about it.
Where will you decide, or where will it be, what portion of the meeting? Am I missing?
It's here in our agenda. We have a public comment period after the president's report.
So,
So
I mean,
that's
from
important.
from a timing perspective, to say to someone,
So we would look at the clock and say, okay, we have 15 minutes now for public comment, or unless we were gonna choose to extend the time. But that's where it falls. And I have told people when they come for public comment, and I think Frank has done that as well, that we welcomed them and then told them we will let them know when it is time for public comment. Okay,
And I think that might be something we want to think about is the location of public comment. in the order of business?
All right,
Does it want to be closer to the beginning or
okay.
at the end?
The agenda, I think our agenda does sit in the bylaws, so we could change it. Do you want it, would you want to do it right after we would call the meeting to order?
I don't know, what do people think, or at the very end, so that.
They might not want to stay and they have had dinner plans.
I think it's a good point, and because all publishing what we're gonna be doing, it doesn't make sense to make it at the end. You do it at the end after we've done whatever our agenda is. So people should, assuming they're coming to speak to something that's on our agenda, it should be earlier, maybe after the approval of the minutes or something like that. Seems like it should be earlier.
Except that we wouldn't change our agenda based on what anybody said.
No, but the point is they may be making comments based upon what is our.
Okay,
So you're making the vote in policy.
yes, I see about it. So, all right, so think about that too, whether then you would move it to the, right after the approval of our previous month's minutes. Before the expenditures,
Right, because they may then want to make their comment and.
because they're not gonna make a comment about the approval of the previous meeting minutes that we're gonna.
I mean, it could be completely something different, or it could be about the topic that you're discussing.
Yes, right. Okay, so we didn't think about that.
And that's my.
So the same with everybody who's here that you've been hearing, if you, since you're all out and about and a part of all these conversations, please. Pass something on to Ike or whatever to get back to us or to Jen. Or if you think there's some kind of a larger conversation we should have, I'm open to that too.
Because it does seem like the public comments have the potential to derail a meeting, right?
They do, and there is a lot to be said for the procedure around that, and that we have a right to need to do library business.
Right.
In our board meeting, it can't be completely derailed by a public comment.
My only thought is, I wouldn't want people to think that this is the only way to get heard, because they can fill out forms and talk to us. Like, I don't know if there's a mechanism here to make sure that they understand that if you have a suggestion, like, this is not the easiest thing to, like, you could come and.
Yeah, well,
like,
if you
the
have
library should
those places that people can submit, I think this is people who specifically are wanting to attend a board, take it to the board, not to. Each of you is department heads, or I think those things are all still in place. This isn't superseding that.
No, I just would want people to think that this is the only thing because it's limited, like. If the board meetings are posted prominently, like all these things are talked about, like you can come to a board meeting that's in the news. But like we have a lot of much simpler mechanisms for you to be heard at your library. And
So
probably
is
more
there
likely to
something
get-
we should indicate to people just in support of access in the strategic plan of gather, to have your voice heard ever at our library? Here are, we have a box for public comment. Would that be helpful to think about doing?
Yeah, maybe, I mean, we have suggestion boards downstairs. I've never received one. The only ones I've ever received upstairs and downstairs. I've never had it go on.
Okay. Well, maybe it would be good for people to know that that exists.
Is there a thing on the website that says, welcome your suggestions, comments?
Yeah. Well, I guess maybe you can all talk about that, Jen and I, and department heads and get back to us. Okay, does anyone have anything else? All right, then I would like to make a motion that we move into an executive session to discuss.
The other library system.
What did you have?
The addition, the library system job specification.
Oh, right. Oh, sorry. Yeah, that's on not on the one I have. Okay.
So, and what this is, give you a little background, this is a paraprofessional position that we have a job specification for that we have. So people who've been in the position have been the computer trainer, for example, in the past. So there are people who do librarian related work or work in support of library work, but who are not librarians. And so the reason this came up was this discussion around the series of Spanish classes that we were offering. We were thinking, is there an alternate way to fund this? Rather than it being in the program budget, if we were to wish to continue it, could we have it be a staff position? And what would the qualification for that be? And it would be probably within this job specification if we decided that teaching Spanish classes was a thing that we wanted to do at the library. Then we went back, because the minimum specification for it is a bachelor's degree, so it doesn't require the master's in library science that the librarians do. It requires a bachelor's degree, but then it has this caveat that requires a bachelor's degree plus 2 years of library experience, full-time paid clerical or paraprofessional experience. Which in the case of the person who had been teaching these classes for us, she didn't have that qualification. So even if we wanted to hire her to do this work, we couldn't because she didn't fit within the specification. But she was highly qualified as a teacher and as a teacher of Spanish. And so in just thinking about, not that we necessarily, we're still having a discussion about whether that's the service that makes sense for the library to pay to provide, but we've talked about having teachers of other things, computer skills, other kinds of literacy, or potentially a social worker in the library. How could we fill those kinds of positions in the library within a job specification? And so what we're suggesting is, as an alternative to that, because in a way it doesn't make sense that you have to have a VA and 2 years of library experience if you want to hire you as a social worker or to teach classes in something. If you have a master's degree in social work or a master's degree in education. So let's see if we can't get that into the job specification as an alternate minimum qualification. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay, so I see the changes that you made in red up there. The first bullet off as for her functions down lower. Provides readers advisory services, just a change in the spelling.
It's a tiny typo.
And then
Really, the middle is low above.
and then down in that last paragraph, the graduation from a regionally accredited in New York State.
And this is sort of preemptive, and at the moment, we don't have any designs to fill a position like this, but it's just in case, as
Yeah.
we continue the conversation,
Right,
it gives us a little bit more.
okay. Does anyone have questions about that, or is someone ready to make a motion to approve that change?
Approve the change.
Okay, that's carried. Someone like to second that? Second. Thank you, Heather. All in favor? Okay. Do you want to stay, Jean?
Yeah.
Okay. So that is, so that all now, I think?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so I would like to make a motion to move into an executive session and discuss a particular legal matter. Can someone second that motion, please?
Second.
Okay. That's great. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.